Welcome to Daily Review, your daily dose of literary exploration. We dive into books that spark curiosity and ignite growth.
While our passion often leads us to nonfiction reads that empower and improve your life, no book is off limits.
From gripping thrillers to insightful memoirs and compelling fiction to historical accounts, we're here to share and discuss all the interesting reads we discover.
Tune in for your next great book idea.
Okay, so today we're cracking open Things I Should Have Said, the memoir by Jamie Lynn Spears.
That's right. And this is really her story, her personal account. It takes us all the way from growing up in Louisiana through becoming this child star really fast, the intense scrutiny when she got pregnant as a teenager.
Right, the whole media storm.
Exactly.
Right.
And then figuring out single motherhood, dealing with some really complicated family stuff, and sort of finding her way as an adult, a wife, a mom, all while living under this massive spotlight.
So our goal here, our mission for this deep dive, is really to explore her version of events, just as she lays it out in the book. We want to pull out those key moments, maybe some surprising details, and try to understand the insights she says she gained. That journey from being a Zoey 101 to finding her own voice with all that noise around her.
And just to be clear, we're sticking strictly to the book excerpts you've shared. Her narrative is our source material here. Think of us as guides through this specific text, focusing on what she chose to emphasize and reflect on.
Okay, perfect. So let's dive in by setting the scene. She starts right at the beginning, Kentwood, Louisiana, childhood. And it sounds, pretty grounded in some ways.
Yeah, she does paint that picture, doesn't she? Like modest house, small town, family time, mama cooking.
She mentions rotel chicken, right?
And
crawfish boil.
Exactly, those specific details. And riding go-karts, swimming in the neighbor's pool.
Yeah.
It gives you that classic southern small town feel.
But even then, you get hints that maybe things weren't quite so, conventional. She has this line about her parents' relationship. Mama's love for Daddy was a powerful force, and Daddy's was just different. That's telling.
It really is.
Yeah.
And his issues with alcohol, they're right there from the start. Disappearing sometimes, showing up drunk. It created this underlying tension, especially holidays, she mentions. Yeah. So even with the happy moments, there's this kind of instability lurking. She says she knew early on her family was, different.
And she saw herself as having this big personality, loved attention, theatrical, even mimicked Britney.
Which feels pretty significant considering what happened next, right?
Totally. Because then Britney's career just explodes.
And suddenly the whole family focus shifts. It's all about supporting Britney. Jamie Lynn says she learned really young to just defer, It's good for your sister, it's good for all of us. Loyalty, but directed entirely at one person's career.
Yeah, she says everyone became sort of responsible for Britney's needs. And that her mama really reveled in the attention of being Britney's mother. It sounds like fame just fundamentally changed the family unit.
It really seems like it. And some of the stories she tells, they really highlight how chaotic or maybe just different things were, like the man peeking in Britney's window.
Oh, right. Leading to German shepherds and moving houses for security.
Yeah. Or her brother Brian having that party when the parents were gone. The kiddie pool full of beer cans. And Jamie Lynn waking up next to some guy with a beard.
Wow, as a little kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even playing with a video camera and accidentally starting a small fire. These little snapshots, they paint a picture of maybe less structure, sometimes things feeling a bit unstable, alongside the family warmth she also describes.
And the tension around her dad's drinking, especially during holidays, just kept cropping up.
Right. Then her parents divorced when she's 10. And she mentions feeling even back then that her mama enabling her dad's behavior wasn't right. It's this mix of love, dysfunction, happy moments. It seems really formative for her.
So from that kind of backdrop, she steps into the entertainment world herself. How did all that happen?
It sounds almost like a lucky break, really. She says she got notice from some behind-the-scenes footage from Britney's tour. Then she auditioned for all that. Had to do sides, create a character. She came up with Louise McGillicuddy, later Thelma Stump, apparently based on her great-granny, and a security guard. Kind of creative, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And getting hired was obviously huge for her. She calls it one of the coolest moments. The kid version of SNL, she says.
And it was a hit. A real launching pad for lots of those kids.
Which led straight to Zoey 101.
Exactly. Dan Schneider developed it specifically for her. She was apparently thrilled, being the lead. And she wanted Zoey to feel like her. A bit tomboyish, goofy, but also brave.
I remember the buzz around that show. She talks about watching the premiere in New York, doing the talk show circuit, feeling like, okay, I've made it.
But she also talks about the flip side, the pressures.
Yeah.
Well, the demand for professionalism, even as a kid. There's this funny story about union rules on working hours. They had to put a bucket on her double's head so she could finish her time on set doing something else while they shot a scene from behind.
Wow. And the pressure about her appearance, too.
Oh, yeah. She's pretty candid about that, feeling she had to keep her weight down, struggling with normal body changes like getting her period and feeling bloated. She puts it like, Zoey was preserved on screen, I was changing in real time.
That sounds incredibly tough, trying to stay looking like this unchanging character while you're actually, growing up.
Must have been. But she did find some good connections. She mentions her makeup artist, Mr. Michael, who helped her with skincare, but also seemed to just get when she was having a hard time and give her space. Finding allies like that seems so important.
And she co-wrote and sang the theme song, Follow Me, with Britney.
Right. And she mentions the recent reboot video they shot with the old cast. Must have been a bit surreal, coming full circle.
Yeah, it really brings that chapter back.
So yeah, that whole Zoey 101 period was massive.
Okay, so she's starring in this huge show, dealing with fame, growing up, and then, boom, 16. Pregnant? That's a massive turn. How does she describe finding out?
It sounds very stark. Driving around with a friend, trying to be secretive because it's a small town, asking her friend, Mrs. Heidi, to actually buy the pregnancy test for her.
Oh, wow.
And then taking it in the BP gas station bathroom. Just a really mundane place for this life-altering news.
And she describes her feelings.
Yeah, really vividly. Heart racing, thoughts, just swirling career, parents, losing everything, just total panic.
How does she tell her mom?
It sounds incredibly difficult. She apparently scribbled a note and just sort of dropped it in front of her mom.
Wow, and the reaction?
Initial disbelief, she says. But that changed quickly.
And the pressure started immediately.
Instantly. Family, management, they pulled her out of school, took her phone. She says lots of people were pushing her hard to terminate. There are pills you can take. You don't have to do this. Don't make a mistake you'll regret. Really direct pressure.
But she decided against it.
Yeah. She chose to have the baby. And she kind of frames it as the moment the good girl image she'd kept up just broke. It was her decision against what almost everyone around her wanted.
She mentions that OK Magazine deal, too. Said it wasn't really about the money.
Right. More about trying to control the inevitable media frenzy, limit the damage, maybe. Though she admits the article itself was kind of a mix of some coach dancers, some of real feelings. It shows how managed her life still was, even in that personal crisis.
And the isolation afterwards sounds intense.
Profound. She felt like home was a prison once her phone was gone. Her team apparently hid the pregnancy from Britney, thinking it was too risky because of Britney's own situation then. And her mom was just visibly disappointed, she says. She describes this really bleak Thanksgiving trip to a cold cabin in 2007, feeling totally alone, calling her friend Diane on a burner phone.
A burner phone. Wow. And that long drive back just to avoid paparazzi?
Yeah, like 22 hours. And then facing all the public judgment, being called a slut, disgrace, disappointment, just brutal, especially at 16.
But what's really interesting is her perspective now, looking back. She says that crisis, as awful as it was, it actually gave her some agency.
Yeah, it kind of forced the issue, didn't it? She started pushing back, wanting independence and making decisions for herself and the baby. She even looked into emancipation papers.
Really?
Yeah, though apparently those got trashed. But they reached some agreement where she got more control over her own life, even though her parents stayed her legal guardians. So weirdly, this huge public scandal seems to be what finally let her start making her own choices without needing everyone else's okay.
So she becomes this single teenage mom away from Hollywood. What were those first days like with Maddie?
She describes just being completely exhausted. No sleep, lots of crying from both of them, she says, and feeling really alone with it all initially.
How did she cope?
Structure. She calls it self-diagnosed obsessive-compulsive. But she became hyper-vigilant about Maddie's care, setting up these really strict schedules. It wasn't just for the baby. It sounds like it gave her a sense of control when everything else felt so chaotic. It brought her peace.
And the relationship with Casper, Maddie's dad? That sounds complicated too.
Yeah, very. They moved in together. But she talks about him being irresponsible, cheating. She admits she kind of fooled herself for a while, hoping she could fix him or make it work. They even got engaged.
Why days?
Maybe trying to create that stability or, prove something to the world. Legitimacy. But she says she eventually realized he just wasn't good for her or for Maddie.
And being isolated geographically in Mississippi didn't help.
No, she mentions it made maintaining friendships hard, limited her support system. She describes feeling like she was in this emotionally abusive situation, like her own spark was just fading. Her vivacity was slowly draining away, I think is how she put it.
So she decided to leave.
Yeah, she moved back in with her mom. Specifically, she says, to get her shit together, to find herself again.
But even after they separated, there was his car accident.
Right. And that put her in a tough spot. She felt she had to be there for him, partly out of simple human decency, but also worrying about how it would look publicly if she wasn't, even though she knew the relationship was done.
That sounds messy.
Totally. She even mentions him taking her pain meds when she was recovering from surgery and then just leaving to go party. It just reinforces why it wasn't working.
So eventually they did split for good.
Yes. But then came the challenges of co-parenting. Supervised visits, his inconsistency. She admits she sometimes ignored red flags because she really wanted Maddie to have that family unit.
That's understandable. So needing a change, she heads to Nashville. Music.
Yeah, she saw it as an escape from all that chaos.
Yeah.
Songwriting became this cathartic outlet for her. She took it really seriously, like a job. Worked with writers like Chris Tompkins, Liz Rose.
Oh, yeah, big Nashville names.
Right. And it let her explore her vulnerability, put her real feelings into her music.
But the industry itself had its own issues for her.
Seems so. She talks about feeling like a product again, or a puppet. Like people were trying to shape her into this specific kind of country star. She called it country music star summer camp.
Ah.
And she just craved authenticity,
Yeah.
control over her own voice and image, especially after finally finding it through songwriting. It's that recurring tension, outside expectations versus her own sense of self.
Okay. Let's shift gears now to something truly devastating described in the book Maddie's Accident in February 2017.
Yeah, this is incredibly intense to read. She sets the scene. Maddie's riding her ATV near a pond on their property, just doing a final loop near the water.
And the ATV flipped.
Flicked right into the pond, and Maddie went under with it.
Oh, my God.
The panic she describes is just immediate. Running into the water, screaming. She got to Maddie first, but realized she was pinned under the ATV underwater. Jamie, her husband, and his dad were there trying desperately to lift it, needing a chain, a bigger vehicle. It felt like forever, she says.
And when they finally got her out?
The EMT, John, was there. He pulled Maddie out, unconscious. Her face was swollen, blue. CPR wasn't working initially. Jamie Lynn describes watching the EMT run towards the ambulance, doing chest compressions the whole way, just unimaginable.
How did Jamie Lynn react physically?
She says she clawed her way up the embankment, threw up. Just complete shock setting in. Someone had to help her back to the house.
And the hospital, waiting for news.
Agonizing. Holding on to Jamie. She mentions his reaction, blaming himself. You should have never met me. And her own fear that Maddie, if she was aware at all, would feel abandoned.
Seeing her in the ICU.
Intubated. Machines everywhere. The doctors were very uncertain. Not responding to pain or reflex tests. The next 24 hours are crucial. Just devastating words to hear.
Casper was there too. And her dad.
Yes, alongside Jamie, praying. And then she describes this moment. They asked for her father, Mark, a priest, to come. And during the last rites prayer, right when he said the words Holy Spirit, Maddie started to thrash.
Wow. That's the turning point.
That's how she describes it. Maddie started responding, looked into her eyes, and then that incredible E-key phone home moment with Jamie, where Maddie touched his finger with the pulse oximeter light on it.
Just incredible relief after that terror.
Absolutely. And later, she mentions Jamie's phone had accidentally recorded audio during the accident. The sounds of the chaos, the screaming, haunting.
And they found out how long Maddie was actually underwater.
Yeah, that's maybe one of the most shocking details. Minimally 6.5 minutes.
6.5 minutes. How did she survive that without brain damage?
Well, Jamie Lynn points to a few things they were told might have helped. Apparently, there'd been a big rain, so the pond was deeper. And crucially, it was unseasonably cold that day, the air and the water. They were told that cold temperature might have protected her brain, prevented infection.
So like a perfect storm of factors almost.
Exactly. She really emphasizes that she believes it was everything combined. The time, the temperature, the first responders, Maddie's own body, science, medicine, and thousands of prayers, God's intervention. That accident is clearly the absolute pivot point in her story.
It sounds like it completely reshaped her priorities.
Absolutely. She says it forced her to just focus on family, stop chasing professional acceptance so much.
And it deepened her faith.
Significantly. She talks about going through RCIA, the process to become Catholic, really embracing faith. and finding this sense of peace by letting go of the need to control everything.
She actually says her anxiety level plummeted after that, more than therapy or medication had done for her in the past.
Yeah, she makes that comparison. Says for her, talking and faith work more profoundly.
And her relationship with Jamie, her husband.
That seems to have become incredibly strong through it all. His support, his unconditional love. She says it healed her in ways therapy couldn't. He helped her feel like just being me was enough.
And seeing him with Maddie, his love for her.
Yeah, she calls it fatherhood at first view. It made her love him even more. They built their family, the Watsons, and found real security together.
They decided to have another child.
Yes. She talks about discussing it. Jamie supporting her, wanting to wait until the time felt right. Then the joy of getting pregnant with Ivy, which felt like fulfilling a promise to God after Maddie's recovery.
And Ivy's birth was different.
Much more typical, she says. No press. She controlled the announcement on social media. A different experience. She calls Ivy her mini-me.
Adjusting to 2 kids must have been interesting, especially with the age gap.
Yeah, she mentions it was similar to her and Britney's gap, and teaching Maddie, who'd been an only child for nearly a decade, to share the attention.
She has a pretty clear idea of what being a good mom means to her, doesn't she?
Very clear. Making hard choices, setting limits, letting kids be kids, putting them first. She contrasts it directly with what she saw growing up, that do as I say, not as I do, approach very real quiet. She felt lacked integrity.
And that need for structure, the scheduling, she connects that back to growing up.
Yeah, to the chaos, needing to feel in control. But she says she values spontaneity too, and finds her own space with, reality TV, reading scripts, Coca-Cola, little safes.
And having the right partner, Jamie, is key to her parenting.
She really emphasizes that. His support allows her to be the parent she wants to be.
Okay, so looking back at everything in the memoir, how does she reflect on fame, family, and where she is now?
Well, she reflects on the whole journey, child star, adult performer, and says at the end of the day, what makes her happy is the simplicity and quiet of a Louisiana lifestyle, not Hollywood.
Does she still work? How does she balance it?
Yeah, she does. So the girls often travel with her, or she makes frequent trips home, relies heavily on Jamie and her extended family for support.
No, she does address the situation with her sister Britney and the conservatorship statements from 2021.
She does. She acknowledges Britney speaking her truth, but she also mentions feeling that sweeping allegations put her own family at risk without specifying exactly who she thinks was responsible for Britney's situation.
What's her position?
She says she supports what's best for Britney, but she feels hurt that Britney couldn't support her in return. She links this to what she calls her parents' distorted vision of loyalty and success.
She feels she was traumatized by their upbringing, too.
Very much so. She wants people, including Britney, to know that she has scars, too, from growing up in that environment, the flip side of fame. She contrasts her path, luck, hard work, owning mistakes with how she sees her sister's approach, which she perceives as blaming others.
And that childhood pressure to be the devoted sister.
That comes up strongly, feeling like she had to constantly appease Britney and her parents, that she was manipulated my entire life. Her own dreams felt secondary, only okay if they fit with Britney's career.
Which brings us back to the pregnancy.
Exactly. It unexpectedly gave her the power to make decisions for herself, she realized, without needing their approval for the first time.
She talks about feeling insignificant, then inconsequential for years.
Yeah, because the focus was always on Britney. It really highlights the shadow that kind of intense sibling fame can cast.
She also makes a point to clarify her role regarding Britney's finances.
Right. She explains she was named trustee for Britney's children in her will, meaning if something happened to Britney but that was totally separate from being a trustee in the conservatorship itself, she wants that distinction clear.
But she still loves her sister.
She reiterates that, yes, love and support, despite everything.
But her focus now is clearly on her own family.
Absolutely. The Watsons, they come first. Her job now, she says, is to protect them with honesty and vehemence.
What are the big lessons she feels she's learned?
Not enabling people, understanding that devotion and trust have to be earned, and finding real authenticity being the same person whether people are watching or not, that internal accountability.
And this philosophy seems rooted in gratitude.
Deeply, especially after Maddie's miracle recovery. Living authentically, giving back, finding the greatest pleasure in simply giving her time, particularly to her daughters.
So if we distill all this, the whole story she tells in Things I Should Have Said, what are the core takeaways? You see these huge, unexpected life shifts.
Definitely. Child star, teen mom, finding her way as an adult. It's dramatic.
And the constant weight of that family legacy, the fame, the struggle to find your own voice inside all that.
Yeah, finding personal agency. And how sometimes, paradoxically, a crisis can actually create the space for that.
It's also a story about trauma, isn't it? Maddie's accident being the clearest example and how that can completely reorient your life, maybe even deepen faith.
And that search for peace, for authenticity, in a life that's been incredibly public and often chaotic, trying to break patterns from her own upbringing and how she parents now.
The meaning of home shifts too, right? Finding stability not necessarily where she grew up, but in the family she built herself.
Right. And the power of support systems, her husband, her faith in getting through the really hard stuff, these are pretty universal themes, just played out on a very public stage.
Jamie Lynn's story really makes you think, doesn't it? How much of who we become is shaped by the chaos we navigate, maybe survive, and how much is built by the deliberate choices we make later on to find peace and be true to ourselves, even when it's hard.
Yeah, it really pushes you to consider your own life. How do you deal with external pressures, family expectations? What does living authentically really mean for you, especially when the world might be watching, or at least when the people closest to you have strong opinions? It's a compelling question.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Daily Review. We truly appreciate you joining us for your daily dose of literary exploration. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue to share these amazing books with you.
If you're enjoying what you hear, please consider taking a moment to subscribe, rate, like, and comment on any of the platforms you're listening from. This really helps support our channel and allows us to get better and bring you even more great content.
If today's review sparked your interest and you're ready to dive into a copy of the book, please consider using the link in our description to make your purchase.
Not only does it make it easy for you to get your hands on the book, but it also directly supports our channel and the author, allowing us to keep bringing you more great content. Thanks again for being a part of the Daily Review community.